Hey everybody, it's Rajesh here.
Intane here.
Welcome to our podcast, Baskets of Knowledge, Chats with a Difference. In our podcast, we invite guests from around the country and around the world to talk about how they got to where they're at the moment. It's about a journey, it's about an experience, it's about their life. Kia ora koutou, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Baskets of Knowledge. For those of you that listen to us every week, thank you for coming back. For those of you that are new, welcome, and hopefully you enjoyed today's chat. As always, we start with a bit of a chat and a bit of a learning that I've had over the last week. And one of the learnings was actually in a training I had today. Today, I was very lucky to have a training around neurodiversity, and yeah, my learning today was we're all on our own self. Actually, go back again. Every one of us is neurodiverse, and that was what the trainer told us. Everyone's neurodiverse, but there's a difference between neurodiverse and neurodivergent, and that was a moment for me because when we hear the word neurodiverse, we think that it's a special group of people, but actually, every one of us is neurodiverse. Why? Because I have a different way of thinking. You have a different way of thinking. We all think differently. And that's why neurobrain diversity. Neurodivergent is somebody or a person whose way of thinking is different to the typical norm. If you're watching this, you'll see me in quote marks because as we learned today, the norm has been defined by a set criteria based on Western philosophy and a certain group of people. So there's a question about what actually is neurodivergent if we're looking at a standardized measure that is not real. So that was really interesting for me to think about that and also thinking about the practice that I have around people. But also for you as you listen to this podcast and think about this here, I'd love for you to think about your own learning and your own understanding of the word neurodiverse versus neurodivergent and the fact that when we talk about that or the media talks about it, we talk about in a deficit as opposed to a positive. When you look at the definitions, always a disorder or a deficit. Even the word ADHD, deficit disorder, double whammy of negativity right there. But actually, if you talk to anyone that has those conditions, they actually have superpowers. So language matters. And, as you think about that, think about the way we use language, especially in, special cases like disabilities or neurodivergent. Is the language that we're using correct? And is it enabling or disenabling? And that's just my learning from today and more mindful of my language. But hey, it's not about me. It's not about a monologue. If you want a monologue, go and watch Jimmy Kimmel or something like that there. Not me. As you know, we scour the country, we scour the world to find people that we think we're interesting, to have a chat to. We know everyone's interesting. And today I'm really lucky and really privileged to invite a guest that I think is an amazing human being. A bit of context, I met this young person, I guess, early in the year in a session, and when we had that session, I was like, well, this person asked me some really clever questions, but also challenged me on some things, which was really great in a positive way. And as I left the room, the teacher from the school said to me, hey, this young person is pretty fantastic. And I was like, yeah, cool, that's awesome. Everyone's fantastic. And then a few weeks ago, the fantasticness got leveled up as I saw some pretty cool things happening in her world and what she does, which is why I invited the podcast. So very lucky, very privileged. It's a Friday night. So really lucky and really thankful that our guest can join us tonight. Welcome to Boss's Knowledge, Avin.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a privilege to come here and to talk to you again and kind of be able to share my story and a little bit of my life with everyone and especially you as well.
No, beautiful. Thank you. And again, I want to acknowledge that it is exam time for you. So I really acknowledge that. And it's a Friday night. So thank you so much.
My
So
apologies
before
for being a little hassled.
no worries, no worries at all. I guess to start off the conversation, do you want to tell our listeners who you are, a bit about where you're at this point in life, and then we'll get into your story.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Avin. I'm currently actually a year 13 student in Wellington. I actually moved here when I was 6 from Iran. So we came initially here for my parents' PhD. And we came here with no English. I actually had no idea when I was even moving. I just realized once, I think I only became conscious of the country I was in maybe year 6, maybe. I had no idea until then. But yeah, I've kind of grown up there. I've grown up here since, and it's been such a privilege seeing the drastic difference in kind of my life and the life of others that I left behind. That's kind of been a real privilege for me growing up. But yeah, so that's kind of where I am at. I'm, as you said, just about to do my IB exams, and I'm hoping to do medicine next year. So that's a bit about my past, presence, and future, hopefully.
Beautiful. What a great way to start this conversation. And I'm going to talk about the fact that you're from Iran, not you are from Iran. This is where you fuck up too. Um, what is it like for your parents on this journey here? You know, you speak, we're going to speak for them. You know, they leave Iran to come to a place that is so far away to do some study. And how do you think that journey was for them? I know you were 6 years old, but I'm sure they would tell you stories about what it's like for them.
Yeah, I mean, migration is such a different journey for everyone. It's a different journey whether you migrate from a different country, a different continent, or even a different city. It's completely drastic, and it depends on your method of migration and the way that you get here, whether you come with kids, whether you come with a spouse, or it's different for everyone, right? And with my parents, I think it's been particularly hard coming with two really young kids who miss their friends and they miss their grandparents. And I mean, I think speaking on their behalf is sometimes difficult because I guess with the immigrant parent kind of stereotype, talking about feelings can be sometimes hard, and it can be sometimes difficult to talk about the struggles they feel because they want us to feel the gratitude as well. Like, I guess they don't want to give that idea that kind of make us feel that their migration was a regret. So yeah, it's kind of been a difficult conversation at home, but I guess as my brother and I have slowly grown up, they've become a little bit more comfortable with it. But language barriers is huge. And I mean, it was huge when we first moved here, and it's still huge today. But it's huge in a different way now. I guess when we were younger, we all really struggled with it. I would come home, and at the start, my brother and I would still talk in each other's Farsi, but now we just talk in English. And I guess it's really interesting how we switch. If we talk to our parents, we'll talk in Farsi, and as soon as we want to ask each other a question, we'll switch to English. So yeah, language barriers has been huge, and kind of seeing my parents struggle in conversations with even me. Like if I go up to my parents, rapid fire in English at them, confused faces. I had no idea what I just said. And jokes and kind of those like norms, that the way that you would describe things, or I guess idiomatic expressions that you'd say don't really stick. And I guess that's kind of been a barrier in our relationship, I guess, as well, because they have had to kind of try to understand me and allow me to grow as a person in a new country, and kind of empower me to kind of embrace a new culture while kind of holding on to my old culture, and well, actually not even my current culture that they feel so closely with. And I guess that's been really difficult for them, kind of seeing me go on with that fear of what if I leave the my Iranian and my heritage kind of culture behind. But yeah, and I guess the other thing has been building a new identity, and where's kind of the barrier between, am I becoming a completely new person because of the environment I'm in, or am I just adapting? And it's been huge for all of us. I guess for them, they came in their mid-30s. So you've built a life, you've built a family, relationships, career, exactly where your life is heading. You've got children, you've got assets, you've got everything. And they completely left that behind. And here they had to completely build from scratch. And it wasn't just like physical things. They didn't just have to get a new job and build a new career, but it was actually just building a new identity. Like in Iran, it's not that common for women to be exercising, at least not when they move. Now it's a bit more common. But mum coming here and seeing how active Kiwis are and always going for runs, really common to go to the gym. That's a new part of her identity that she's now embracing. And work culture is different, like going from a super workaholic, 24/7, build your career, be great at what you do. But here, I mean, they're great at what they do, but they're relaxed about it. It's fine. Like your work is just a small part of your identity. And I think it's been really interesting to see them kind of explore new areas of themselves. I guess it's supposed to be that by the time they have children, they've built their identity, right? And then now they get to watch us and help us build our identity. But I guess the interesting thing about migration, it can be good or bad, is that we get to do it together. And I guess my brother and my parents and I have just been able to work together to build a new identity. And it hasn't been a stereotypical childhood of like them just letting out watching us do it, but they've actually been able to do it with us, and we've been able to explore different things in different areas of our own self, which has been really cool. But yeah, building a new family has been fun as well. We don't really have the same support system that people who are born here might have. It's been kind of learning to rely on new people and knowing that you might not always have family to rely on across the globe. You will sometimes just genuinely are alone, and I guess that sucks, but it's kind of brought us closer together because, yeah, we're the only family we have on the side of the world.
Yeah, and it's so interesting, the way you put that there, because as you said, every single migrant family's journey is so different, and there's no right or wrong. It's just a different journey. And what I loved about you is your story was the fact that I think about my family and my migrant story as well is clinging onto your heritage is really important. And I'll give you an example. My grandmother is from India, and I was born and raised in Zimbabwe. So my dad was born in Africa, but he was so stuck on his heritage. He wanted to make sure that we maintained our heritage. We spoke in Gujarati at home and da da da. My grandmother on the other hand, was like, nope, I want you to speak in English to me because I want to be integrated into this new world that I'm in. And it was so crazy living in this world where someone from I'm going to use the word old world wants to learn the new world, or the new world wants to learn the old world, and you have this crazy clash of what am I doing here? But as a young person, you just adapt and you don't think about it. But as you get older, you go, whoa, what is actually going on here? And then you have a question of what is my identity? Which is the way I go. So yeah, I love the way you put that there because obviously your parents were trying to make sure that hey, your Iranian heritage is not forgotten.
Yeah, I
But
guess
now you
that
live,
was like something that my parents did as well. I think I was fortunate enough that they really embraced my Iranian culture at home because they knew that my New Zealand culture would be quite strongly embraced in the school environment and with my friends.
yes.
So I think yeah, it's actually really interesting because I feel like often I'm quite a different person when I'm at school and when I'm with my friends to when I'm at home. Like they just both kind of people in my lives, they just know me so differently. My sense of humor is different. Like I'm just, yeah, but it's been cool integrating it. Like sometimes I'll make a joke that I make with my friends, with my parents in Farsi. And at first they'll be confused, and then after a week they'll catch on and they'll think it's just the funniest thing ever. And it's just really cool bringing different parts of my different cultures and integrating them and kind of becoming that like multicultural, I guess, person.
That's so cool. And I guess as you said just before, you said that when you started going to school, did you notice and I guess it must have been hard to start when you go into school and you don't speak English. I mean, this is a long time ago, I guess. Can you remember what that was like for you? And the reason I asked this because I'll come back to that as we think about the cool things you've done when you're in the last few years. But thinking about yourself going into school and you don't speak English and everyone, I'm guessing, speaks some level of English.
It was really difficult. I was really fortunate enough actually to go to a school. I went to school in Newtown, so I went to Newtown Primary
Oh,
School, and the good thing about Newtown is now you're nodding is that it's a very multicultural school.
yeah.
It is, and I think the time that I went especially was full of new immigrants, new refugees, Maori and Pacifica people. It was just the most diverse kind of group of young kids. And yeah, I mean, it was scary and it was isolating and it was probably one of the scariest things I did as a child that, I mean, no child should probably ever go through. But it was a little bit less scary because I was in an environment where I was with people and families who understood it. And I think it even made it easier almost for my family because my mum was able to make friends who they could be like, they could kind of relate on the same level of things that, oh, our kids are going through the same experience, and us as parents, we're going through the same experience. And I think having friends at such a young age that related to me on such like complex and kind of just difficult themes and struggles that could actually understand that and comprehend that through their own experience, not just through being told that that's difficult, was a real privilege. And I something that I had up to understand not a lot of people actually get the privilege to experience that in a lifetime, especially young kids. Like, I mean, a lot of my friends and now that I do a lot of work in the refugee community is that a lot of kids are growing up in communities where kids around them have not ever experienced anything like this. And I mean, they can try to get them to understand, and a lot of people have the level of empathy to understand it, but they will never have truly experienced what it's like moving to a country with nothing, no English, no understanding of what's okay, what's not. And I think the funniest story actually was, I think this was in year 5. Year 5 is kind of when, I mean, at our school, people started to get a little bit kind of experimenty with words. And so we had like these naughty kids in our class just saying these really bad words in class and just seeing what would happen. And they kept saying it, and I was just like, I have no idea what these kids are saying. But the second one of these guys says it, everyone starts laughing. And I just was like, okay, well, they obviously are saying something cool, so I want to be that cool. And this is little year 5 Avin, and I just got up in the middle of class and I just dropped the F-bomb. No context. I just got up and I said it. And the teacher looks at me and she goes, what? Where did this go? And I obviously would have said it with like the most silly accent, no clue in the world, just looking around to see if everyone's laughing. And I think that was just one of those things that now that I look back on, it's just I had no idea. I had no idea. I was not growing up in a house where I was that it was set around me, or yeah, it was just learning from environment. I think my whole, I guess, childhood was experimental learning and observational learning, and just seeing, okay, these people are doing that, and this is the response they're getting. So I'm going to do that, and that's the response that I'm getting. Um, and same with my parents. Parenting here has been so different, right? So they've just been parenting by experiment, seeing what works and what doesn't. So yeah, that's been a big learning curve.
I love it. I love how that's so um locked in your memory, that moment of you standing up and saying the word that you said. So crazy. But also it just shows the power of your environment, whether you're an immigrant or whatever it is that your environment plays such a big impact on a young person as you're developing. That's so I guess it goes back to the importance of your environment basically dictates, nurture versus nature. At that stage, the nature is really impactful about where
Yeah.
you are. And I'm gonna you mentioned something there that is going to be the crux of the conversation, I guess, is the word refugee. You said you work with the refugee communities at the moment. When did that become part of your, hey, this is something that I really am passionate about, because um, you're 17, turning 18 soon. I mean, this is not something that a 17-year-old go, oh, I just want to get involved. When did this actually happen for you? Or actually, I'll rephrase that. Was there a moment that you'd actually, I don't, this is a space that I really want to start working and empower our new migrants?
Yeah, 100%. I think the big thing was, and it kind of goes off our conversation, nature versus nurture and environment, right? So I grew up going to schools, super multicultural schools. Like all my friends and my friend groups were just every kind of ethnicity you could name. I was completely exposed to all these different experiences of coming to New Zealand or being born here, but with parents, second generation, third generation, first generation immigrants, refugees. It was all around me. I was super exposed to it. And then in year 11, I moved to my school now. And I would say that I am one of very few people with that migrant experience. And it was challenging for me, man. I was 16 moving there. That's like, I mean, it's not an adult, but I was still pretty young. And I, it was a huge culture shock. I realized that no one around me even has even been exposed to people with my experience. And I just completely had the biggest personality change. I had to change my sense of humor and the things that I laughed at or the jokes that I made and the things that I even liked to do. And the way that I talked about my family and my culture, I became really protective of my family and what I shared about them because I thought, man, they wouldn't understand this. And even like the food that I took to school was even different because I was like, at my old school, people would be like, "Oh my God, this looks so yum! Like, can I try some?" But here they're like, "Oh, that looks. What are you eating? Like, what's even in that?" And it was such a huge culture change. And I guess the whole idea of environment and kind of the people that you're around became so big to me because I realized that often immigrants, and now that I've like kind of become more involved in the space, refugees are in environments where people around them don't understand their journeys. They don't understand how they've become the person they've become, the struggles they have faced to reach here, and the struggles they currently face and will face in the future. They don't experience it and they don't empathize with it at all. And it was huge in my journey, and that's when I started getting involved with change makers. So I think I initially reached out to them because I said, hey, look, you guys do amazing work. I have just been following the stuff you do. I really want to get involved with it. And I think my school is a good opportunity to get to provide, be able to kind of work with you guys to support the initiatives you guys do. And also for us to be able to gain multiculturalism and gain a diverse kind of perspective. So I thought it'd be an amazing learning opportunities for our girls, but also to be able to kind of take a step back from just looking for our own personal development, but be able to use our resources for other people's initiatives. And we worked with changemakers to come up with a couple different things actually. But yeah, so that's where I started. Since then I've been doing a couple different things with changemakers, and yeah, so now I kind of branched away from school, and I've been running my own weekly yoga sessions for refugee women. And that actually held a really special place in my heart because I I'm really passionate about women empowerment and creating safe space for women. And the refugee space was obviously a really special place with my own experience. So I thought, okay, they deserve the environment that I always obviously wish that I had, right? And so we worked with change makers. They had all these amazing women that they were in contact with, and we held kind of well-being engagement sessions where we got all members of the community come, and we had these sticky notes set up with questions and prompts around well-being, and we said, hey, what do you guys want to see? Because I guess something that one of my close friends taught me was oftentimes it's not really about what you want to set up, but what the community needs. And I think that was a huge milestone in my journey because when I initially approached change makers, I had ideas and I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And I said, hey, look, I have these ideas and I think you guys should want them and I just want to organize them. So you guys should just support me in organizing these and get the people to come. And yeah, so I'll just do everything and you guys get the people and we're good. And that's just going to be amazing. And we ran, I think, I don't even, can't even remember what it was now, it was a couple of years ago, but we ran something and it was so unsuccessful. And I just remember reflecting and being like, why? Like, why am I giving people this amazing resource and this amazing initiative? And why is no one wanting to use it? I thought this is something that you guys needed. But what I actually came to realize was if we're creating change and if we're creating initiatives, it needs to be centered around their voices. It needs to be fully led by them. Our role, and I guess my role as someone who wanted to kind of get actively involved in service to support these communities, was not as someone who ran it, decided what was going to be it, run it, and expect people to thank me. It was actually to give them the resources and the platform and a listening ear to tell me what they wanted and make it happen for them. And I just kind of started seeing myself, I guess, as this channel of just, okay, this is what we want. Great. I'll make it happen. Done. And that's exactly how the yoga thing came to place. We had the well-being engagement session, we gathered so much feedback around refugees and their experience in the well-being space in New Zealand. So that sparked my initiative of the yoga sessions, which have been pretty successful so far. We've really loved seeing such a wide range of people come, and I think the thing that's really special about them is they're kind of just that stable, consistent week always there. There's no expectation that you have to drop everything and be there on Sundays. But if one week you need it and you just feel like you just need to be around people who understand you and have been going through the same stuff as you in the past week, you come to that space and you know that you've got that for you. And it actually also sparked my work with Te Whatu Ora as well.
No, beautiful. What I love there is your awareness on so many times, and I'm guilty of this here, when you want to create something because you think it's great without thinking, well, what's great for the people that you're serving. You know, we all fall into the trap there because hey, let's be honest, we're all humans. We think our idea is the best idea in the world. Yeah, this is the most amazing idea, and then it doesn't actually work. Why? Because nobody actually wants it and nobody's asked for it. So that's really, really awesome. And I guess the question for you is when you did this the post and notes, what is one of the biggest things that came up for you from the refugee community? Were you quite surprised by, hey, this is what we think about the wellbeing space in New Zealand?
I wasn't surprised, but the biggest thing that we saw was a lack of understanding and a lack of
Okay.
empathy. It
Yeah.
was just not being able to understand their journeys and their struggles, and not being able to facilitate for it as well was a huge thing. They just kind of it wasn't just the post-it notes of like I went around and I talked to people, and it was just that sometimes the best they'd get is just an attempt at empathy. Is,
Hmm.
hey, look, I understand, but I actually just like don't really want to help. Like it's a lot of effort for me to go out of my way to help. And one of the really important things that I think just needs to be said again and again for people to understand is that providing support and such as just an interpreter at a doctor's appointment is not going beyond and is not doing the max. It's not going above and beyond for a patient. It's just doing the bare minimum requirement. You are not being a savior for these people by giving them just a little bit of support that is legally required. That's just the minimum. If you wanted to go above and beyond to support these communities from refugee backgrounds, migrant backgrounds, or as you were saying, neurodiverse backgrounds, that's not the support. That's
That's right.
not that's just bare minimum. That's what you're required to do by law. And
Yeah.
they're like, oh, they just some of them were like, yeah, well, I was actually having conversations with some of these healthcare professionals, and they were like, oh yeah, well, actually, I've always called an interpreter when needed. And I'm like, oh my God, yay! Like you won't be sued. That's great. Thank you so much for following the law. We really appreciate that. But it's like they're proud of just the minute. And I'm not saying everyone's like that. I'm like majority of the people that I talk to is actually a concern from both sides. They
Yeah.
don't have access to the support they want to provide these communities, and these communities aren't receiving it. I'm not saying that they are holding on to these resources and they're not giving it to them just because they can't be bothered. A lot of the time, it's actually just a lack of resources and a lack of funding in these spaces. And that's what it just needs to be brought more attention to. And I think there's a lot of capacity. I think what I was thinking about is that they just overcomplicate it. They just make it so much harder than it needs to be. Because when I was kind of thinking about the healthcare space, because this is kind of a field that I'm really interested in, was why are doctors not provided with the training to interact with these communities in an effective way that is safe for both patients and healthcare providers? And a lot of things that people said to me was, well, there's just not enough funding for it. Or there's just like, there are training, but they're just like not really that accessible to people. And I said, okay, let, let's change that. And I initially wanted to create my own trainings. And I approached Te Whatu Ora and I was like, hey, look, I have an idea of creating these trainings that is designed by the community and even facilitated by the community. So it is these trainings are 100% community led. They know their own struggles, they know their own problems, they know their solutions and what works for them, and they are able to train these doctors on that. Why can we do this? And they said, hey, look, we already have trainings. We aren't really open to new trainings because, to be honest, these are kind of our streamlined ones. So if you create your own, we're not going to support you and you're not really going to get not
Yeah.
much with that. And I said, okay, look, so can we redesign yours? Why are yours not working if they
Yeah.
exist? And what we saw was that they were designed 13 years ago,
Oh,
and
wow.
they were designed by people not from the communities that they were
Yeah.
targeting.
Yeah.
So when they said that to me, I kind of lost my filter and I was like, so why are we sitting here discussing why they're not working then?
Yeah.
13 years, that is a
A
pandemic.
lifetime. A lifetime. Yeah.
It's like generations and generations of new refugees and immigrants that had go through completely different struggles, completely different experiences, completely different support systems. And why are we all like sitting here discussing why are these courses not working when the issue is like literally written out for us?
Yeah.
So what we did is they were like, okay, are you able to help advise us on the redesign of these? And I was really privileged to be able to help them with that. So we focused on the refugee modules and we traveled around New Zealand. So we did, I can't even remember, I think it was a total of maybe 5 or 6 in kind of engagement feedback sessions around the country. We did the South Island and the North Island. And we kind of facilitated a group of about 5 to 10, depending on the city, refugee community members, and they answered these questions. And we did the module for them actually first. And we said, hey, like, what do you think about this? What do you think about the way that you're presented in these modules and the way that we are telling your story about your journey there and the struggles that you're going to face and what doctors should be aware of? And they they were like, this is not what we experience. You're telling them that first we come in New Zealand, we go in Auckland for 2 weeks, and then we do this, and then we have support workers for 3 months. So if we go to doctors and they can't get us an appointment, we should go back to our support workers. And they're like, our support workers don't even answer our phone calls anymore.
Mm.
They can't come contact after 2 weeks often. And it was, yeah, it was huge. And we were like, this is why they're not working. Because it's not like doctors are getting the perfect amount of information, they're completely ignoring it. It is like they have the resources and they're just not being used in the right way. And what I was just thinking is that these communities were so more than happy to be there, were more than happy to partake in these conversations, to provide feedback, to partake in the redesign of it and everything. And all I could think of it was, why can't we just do this with everything? Why can't all our systems be designed with the communities they're going to impact? Why is it that they're designed by just normal people in an office who have never experienced this and just decide by some articles that they've read that this is the right information? Why?
Yeah, and it's so true. I mean, that's such great awareness there. And it's, it's so true because a lot of times there's so much material that's been produced for X, Y, Z, but produced by the wrong people. Good intentions 100%. We never doubt intention, but it is methodology. Intentions are great. And as you said, this intention, but the intention is, are we doing something extra? But actually, it's just getting people to the same level, which is very different to think about that. But then the methodology is totally different. And, not having community involved is a recipe for disaster. But great awareness for you on bringing that there. And how did that go? When you said, I love the line. You're like, I lost my filter. So immediately I'm thinking about 5-year-old Avin and a great word that she used. I thought that came out straight away for me in my mind. What was your gut reaction? I mean, because you're hearing this here, we've got this here. What is your gut reaction straight away? If you could put that in words.
There's so much to be done. There's
Yeah.
so much to be done. All these, like, every time I think back to these sessions, because in the past couple of weeks I've had to, and I've just been doing so much reflection, and I've just been thinking, it keeps replaying in my mind some of these horror stories that I heard of
Yeah.
people that completely just ignored or told that they are just it's not possible to provide them with the support that they need in
Yeah.
whatever capacity. And it was just my reaction was just horror and pure fear for anyone else who has to experience this and anyone else who goes through the system that we are all just accepting. And
Yeah.
I just was like, okay, I'm glad that this is the first step that we're taking. I'm glad that this is being done, but that it can't end there. It literally just can't end here because there's millions and millions and millions of initiatives that still need to be made to even get us to a world where I don't have to hear those horror stories and I don't have to people don't have to go through them. Most
Yeah.
importantly, people don't have to go through that because it's a horror story for us as another person's actual true life experience and
Yeah.
something they literally lived through.
Yeah.
So why are we stopping and why are we saying why are we I mean it's amazing to celebrate small successes. It's amazing and I think it's important for continuous success, but I think it's really important to say great work. Let's keep going. Let's keep the momentum going because redesigning this module, amazing. Let's do another one
Yeah.
because they have what 12 modules, 8 modules like that for every kind of different community in New Zealand, but only one of them has now been redesigned as of 13 years ago with collaboration in the community. So what about the other seven?
Yeah.
Are they gonna be effective the way that
Yeah.
they are? Because I just having a wild guess, I don't think they are.
Yeah. And I think that's a good guess. That's a good safe guess. Good safe guess. It reminds me of a story that we talk about language and language barriers, and I still think about a young person I met a few years ago, and he was a new migrant, a new refugee in New Zealand, and he couldn't speak English. Think about yourself. You couldn't speak English when you came, and this young person came to New Zealand as an 18-year-old, couldn't speak English, and there's many, many refugees we know that come as older students. Couldn't speak English. He was put into school, and the school said to him, "No, you're dumb. Because you can speak English, you're dumb. We're going to put you in the sorry for my language. We're going to put you in the lower classes because you're not going to go to university. You can't speak English." And he was like, "But I understand science. Science doesn't require English. I can do maths, I can do chemistry, I can do physics because you don't need English for that. But that's universal across the board, right?" And I still remember the school was like, "Nah." And there was one teacher. There's one teacher who was like, "Nah, this is ridiculous," and made sure that they did university entrance standards. And the whole school was like, "He'll never get UE, never get UE." He got UE. He's now about to graduate as a pharmacist in 3 weeks' time. And I was like, if he didn't have someone that didn't believe in the fact that it doesn't actually matter about the language barrier, science doesn't have a language. Science is a language on its own. But again, it's what you say, perception versus reality. Just because you speak another language doesn't mean you are uneducated. It doesn't mean that
Yeah.
you can't do the same things, right? It's just crazy. But then as you said, the problem then becomes in that context there, the school didn't understand and they just automatically just said it's too hard basket. And if you put that into the medical field again, too hard basket, I'm just gonna do the
And
minimum and then off you go.
it's amazing that he had a person like that who was able to provide that support for him. And it shows us that what about the other people that we don't hear about that didn't have that?
100%. I always think about what if you didn't have a person that believed in you? Or you don't
Yeah.
have a
And
person
and there
that
are
doesn't.
people like him who
Oh,
don't, and I see it every day, and I see people even in my school that come to New Zealand, they've just come, they automatically get put 2 years below. So
yeah,
they're 2 years older than the kids in their class. They're sitting in the math class and they know everything.
yeah,
And why? Just because they don't speak English, they're dumber?
yeah. God, it's crazy.
Is,
So
is,
crazy,
is
right?
that does that equate to the same thing?
Yeah, no, my pushback question always is if I put you, for example, if I put you in Iran or India or Afghanistan, how would you do? And how would you feel if we said to you, you know all the stuff here, but you can't speak the language? You're dumb,
Yeah.
That's it. Reversal, role reversal. So yeah,
And
that's
it
crazy.
stems from, I guess, and I mean, it sounds really extreme, but I'll explain my kind of thinking process of just like the white thinking about the white culture and language being above and superior to everything else. And it's just thinking the English language, because we speak it and because it's hugely spoken in most countries, it's better than every other language. So if someone is coming from Iran and they're speaking Farsi, they don't speak English, they're below us. They
Yeah.
don't equate to us. Even if they have t 5 times more degrees than us, they don't equate to us. And
Yeah.
you see it in not even just school children, but you see it in workplaces and education facilities where my dad, for example, he has a PhD, a bachelor's degree, and 15 now, what, 30 years of work experience in total, but he's still compared to people with half the number of degrees and half the work experience just because of language.
Yeah.
Just because of language, and not even just written language, but verbal.
Yeah.
Just because they can't explain their idea, they aren't shown on the same level, but it just kind of stems from the idea that the English language is better. And you see it in schools now. It's becoming a little bit bigger, but it's coming bigger in kind of indigenous eyes
Yep.
because
Yes.
Māori language is seen as below, and it's not as important to teach that in school because but we prioritize teaching English. But why?
Yep.
Why is English the language that we're choosing to speak, and why is it not comparative at all to any other language? Why is it automatically above every other language?
It's so crazy. It's so systematic, right? Systematic that we've been ingrained with this crazy way of thinking. And
And no one realizes that it
yeah,
stems from a really, really, really deep level of racism. And they just think that it's because everything is in English. So if a person can't speak English, then they'll just be a little bit lower. But it just completely stems from systematic racism that no one is just completely subconscious.
yeah, it's crazy, and it's crazy, and I guess we can keep talking about that forever and ever and ever because it's such a crazy, crazy big topic. But I want to steer a bit away from that because I want to talk about your accolades, because that's also important. Celebrating wins is important. Let's talk about GirlBoss. How did you get involved in GirlBoss, and what's that journey been like for you as well?
GirlBoss has been an amazing platform, not just for me, but for thousands of young. I mean, not around the world, around New Zealand at the moment, but I just see everyone that I talk to now knows what it is. And Elixir is an absolute inspiration to every young woman in New Zealand. And she's just provides such a safe space. And I got involved in her work when I was still at my old school in year 10. And I got a scholarship to partake in their healthcare course. And that's literally where my passion for healthcare started. And she creates these amazing courses for all these different kinds of degrees to get women involved in STEM, to kind of create this community of women from all these different backgrounds interested in STEM. So whether that's medicine, engineering, tech, all these kind of stuff, and get them interested in it, but to understand that they're not weird or they're not the only one who's interested in it. I think it just stems from Alexia's own experience at her school being the only girl that took Digitech. But now she's just created this community of like so many young girls who share the same passion and feel good about it. Yeah, so I took part in a couple of her courses throughout my high school experience, and I loved every single one of them. And I've met some of my amazing closest friends from them as well. And this year I was really, really lucky to be awarded the Girl Boss Award. So the Girl Boss Award is a national kind of recognition of some kind of service to your community. So we had 12 winners, and among the 12 winners, we had girls doing health research, groundbreaking health research in the importance of sleep for teenagers. We had girls with podcasts. We had girls doing setting up these like skating businesses, trying to get other young girls into skating. And it was just amazing to be surrounded by these young women who just saw something that needed to be done and did it. No questions asked. They didn't need to be told. They didn't feel weird doing it. they just saw that it was done and they did it, not even for recognition. And it was amazing to see. It was such a cool community to be a part of. And yeah, Alexia's just, she's amazing.
Oh, beautiful. I mean, it's that's awesome. First of all, well done to you, and well done being acknowledged. But also, I'm a fan of what Alexia does. As you know, I work with lots of young Wahine across the country, and every time I talk to them, I'm like, "Have you thought about GirlBoss?" And like you said, most people know about it, and if they don't, they get to know about it very, very quickly. So it's pretty cool that we have this platform in New Zealand for to empower Wahine in STEM, and that's pretty cool. Talking about healthcare, let's talk about Nepal. How did you end up getting to Nepal for a little bit?
Yeah. Um, I really wanted to do some volunteer medical work, and I really wanted to do it overseas as a cultural experience for myself. I, yeah, my family and I think it stemmed from a little bit missing my own culture, and I just wanted to go a little bit get a taste of home. So me and one of my best friends, we went to Nepal together over summer, and it was actually the trip had two components to it. The first component was just shadowing. So we spent the large majority of our days at hospitals and clinics all around a small rural city called Chitwan. It was a couple hours out of Kathmandu, which is the capital. It was such a gorgeous city. And yeah, so we did really long days at clinics. We did public hospitals, private hospitals, small clinics, everything you could think of. We did family planning clinics as well, and we saw a huge range of procedures. We got to help. It was amazing. It was such a cool experience. And it was really cool for me to kind of make me excited about medicine because I guess when you tell people you want to do med, the first reaction you get, wow, that's gonna be hard. Like buckle in for 6 years of hell.
Which is
Um,
crazy. It's so crazy. That thought process blows my mind. Everyone says it. I'm like, what? This is so crazy. Sorry.
yeah. It's the first thing people say to you when you say you want to do. It's just the first thing that comes out of the mouth, and I mean, it's not wrong. Obviously, it's a really hard journey, but it just makes you so not motivated to do it at all. But the trip was amazing. It made us all so passionate about what we wanted to do and just more excited to do it. Um, but the second aspect of our trip was a community outreach. So we went to a local kindergarten and we spent the whole day before planning everything. So we came up with all these games, we made all these cards, and we knew that language barrier was obviously going to be a problem. We could say 5 words maximum in Nepalese, and that was hi, my name is, thank you. And that we knew that was not going to be enough. And the purpose of our trip there was to teach them about hand hygiene, so the proper way to wash your hand, and dental hygiene, the proper way to brush your teeth. So we knew that it was going to require some more complex language that we just didn't have and didn't have the time to learn. So we made all these cue cards and pictures and drew these massive apples to show them a good diet and all these hand washing steps. And we planned all these games and these songs for them. And then the next day we got there and it was 10 times harder than we could have imagined. The kids just looked at us with with confusion and we were making a fool of ourselves and we were like, oh, and they just like, okay, like
They're like, did they
what?
did they did they
And
did they forget their meds? What is going on here?
yeah, what are these like foreigners just coming to our kindergarten and with nothing, just a picture of an apple? Um, and it was really funny because at that time, I was actually working at the pool as a swim instructor and I was doing toddlers. So my whole job was just hours of duck, duck, goose and just making swimming fun. And it was became a joke in my friend group, but when I actually got to the kindergarten that day, I was like, okay, guys, I know all these games. I've got it all stashed up. Let's just use them all. We just need to keep them entertained. So we ended up playing games like Duck Duck Goose, but soap wash. And um like shoulders, knees, and toes. And we do it with like hand washing. So we'd go thumb, wrist, palms, and we just make it fun. And they knew the lyrics, and that was like fun. The coolest part was because we did one game. We just one of the kids was like one of the like our kids was like, okay, let's do Baby Shark. Everyone knows Baby Shark. And I was like, okay, that was the first game we played, and the kids knew the lyrics. And we were like, okay, maybe they'll know the lyrics of other songs. And that's what led us to doing all these other games. And we started playing all these fun games with us. And that whole day was such a huge realization. It was such a big kind of mental milestone because I was like, we don't speak the same language. We have, I'm like 3 times your age, but I was just able to teach you how to brush your teeth and how to wash your hands with only speaking 3 words Nepalese and you guys only knowing like 4 songs. And I was able to kind of communicate these really complex themes to you, which obviously for us they're not complex, but for a 4-year-old they're
Yep,
pretty
totally.
insane. And I was like, wow, it's they no one has any excuse to say they can't communicate with someone. Never. You never have an excuse. And that's kind of what led to some of my work after. But yeah, so we did that. Um, and we gave them toothbrushes after to take home with them, and it was adorable. It was so cute. But yeah, it was such a big kind of it was a small experience of like we just sang to them and we just taught them how to brush their teeth, and I got up and I made a fool of myself. I literally put toothpaste on the toothbrush, started showing them in the middle of the day. Um, but it just showed all the different ways you can communicate things to people that's not just in the same language. And I came back and I was talking to one of my friends and I was like, I want to produce booklets communicating health themes, but to people that don't speak the English language. But it's still going to be in English, but it's going to be not just me writing it out in the most complex medical terms. And that's what I've been working on in the past year. So it's still very much in the progress, and we're just seeing what can we even do with this. But yeah, so that's kind of where the trip led me. But it was an amazing experience, and I've just met some of my closest friends from that trip.
How crazy. You also must started off as a shadowing in the med school or in the hospitals, and your greatest learning was actually in the kindergarten, back to basics. Isn't that crazy?
Exactly. And the biggest thing that I learned was from a bunch of 3-year-olds. And it was
Isn't
like
that
the 3-year-olds that had no idea what I was even saying to them. They had no idea what they
yeah?
were even teaching me. But I had all these doctors trying to teach me suturing and complex surgeries, and I learned from a 3-year-old.
Isn't that crazy? In my coaching world, I always speak about beginner mindset and the child mindset, and we just forget. You use the word "make a fool of myself" pretty often there, but I was like thinking when you're a kid, you don't think about that. You're just being yourself, right? But as an adult, we have these crazy perceptions of things that are not in the norm, so therefore they become being silly. But actually, hey, and it's so crazy how we do that. At some stage in our life, we get to the stage where we just stop playing. And if we
Yeah.
play, it becomes, hey, I'm being silly. It's so crazy when that
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah, definitely. It was because there's all the kids that we came together were just taking videos of me like, oh my God, why is she just like literally like got a toothbrush in her mouth right now and showing these kids actually what to do and like making them like imitate her. And I was like, I do these with my kids at the pool every day.
Yeah,
I have to get under the water and show them how I pick up the ducky.
yeah.
And I probably seem stupid to the parents and they're like looking at me like I'm crazy, but it's not it's just gotta learn to embrace kind of that child in you.
Yeah, totally. But also, again, if we think about what you said right at the start, it's about giving the message that the community wants, not about you. So when you're in the pool, it's about the message that your swim students need to know. In this context, what your Nepalese young people need to know. It wasn't about you, it's about them. So it all goes back to who's the message for. Is it for me or is it for my community?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's whatever form that's best suited for them. And if I have a way of being able to communicate that to them, It's not
Win-win.
really about how difficult it is for me or how silly I look.
Yeah,
And I guess what you just said, it circles back to even in the medical environment where getting an interpreter for a patient is not about the extra chore that it is for you or that it might hold up other patients. If that's what it needs to be done,
it needs to
it
be done.
needs to be done.
100%, 100%. Really, really cool, really exciting, really, really beautiful work there. And Evan, I guess another crazy segue again. Gonna go to yoga. Why yoga? Is that something that you're into, or is it something that you do the yoga instructing with the refugees? Is that
Yeah.
something that you're passionate about?
Yeah, so people know me as not really a fitness sporty kind of person. The polar opposite of that. I've never been into sports. I've never been the kind of person to join a sports team. And my mum's kind of the same, and we both are just like, no, we're not going for a run ever. But I started getting into yoga in over the past couple years when I guess mental health became a big topic and looking after your mental health and looking after finding ways to kind of manage your mind and manage the way that you perceive things and the way that you respond to things. Um, and yoga was an amazing outlet for me. It was one of those things that I it gave me it gave me a vein time and it gave me some time to be away from all the things that brought stress into my life. Yeah, it was an amazing outlet for me, both physically and mentally, and I really, really, really liked it. So when I was talking to the community, we were just actually it was not really as like a what do you guys want? It was actually I was like, oh yeah, I just came from yoga and I was like, I just feel so much better. Like I just that's why I'm so energetic. And they were like, oh yeah, like where do you go? Because yoga's just so expensive and like I never understand what the instructor's saying, and then I have to look up and then they're doing something completely different by the time I process it. And I was like, oh yeah, like I never even realized because
Yeah.
I've grown up here. I've English is not really a barrier for me anymore. And that's kind of where it led me to. So we worked with a yoga studio in Wellington and it's called Now Yoga. They are just it's such a beautiful studio. Every time I step in there, I'm literally blown away. It's like an art studio as well. So they've got these amazing paintings and cool portraits all around. It's such a beautiful studio. And we've got an amazing instructor who really accommodates to the people that come and she knows all of them. She knows which part of their bodies hurt when they do different things, and she always modifies the class for everyone. And yeah, so it's been I wanted to share a little of my love and something that's helped me and something that I people just didn't even think was an option for them.
Beautiful. I love that because yeah, it's so great when you can share something that you're passionate about and people are like, hey, this is really cool as well. Sharing is caring, as they say, and in this context, it's more than just caring. It's about enabling as well. Sharing, caring, enabling, which is really, really beautiful. Yeah. Evan, we've been talking for almost an hour, and we can keep talking forever and ever because there's some amazing things we can chat about. You've touched on so many different amazing things that you've been involved in, but also some things that are not so amazing, like the barriers that you see in your communities. But as we end our chat today, I've got one last question for you. Our podcast is called Parcels of Knowledge, and every week we invite our guests to share a piece of knowledge to put into our basket for myself, for our listeners, and it can come from any part of your life.
Gosh. I think I'll go back to what we were talking about is are you communicating let me word this in a way that is not an Avin wording. It's in a everybody wording. Um, is the
You
work
you,
that you're
you could
doing
you could do a dance if you wanted to, or a lyric, just saying.
might make it into a rap. But
Yeah.
nah, would is the work that you're doing is what you think is good, or is it what you've been asked to do? Is it something that the community has shown a need for, or have you just decided that that's what they need? Because just center what you do. If you're doing it for another person or another community, center around their voices. It's like getting someone a birthday gift, but you're choosing someone that you want.
Yep.
Why
So,
would you
so
do that? They're not gonna want it. Don't get upset if they don't want it. So ask them what they want and do your best to provide that for them if that's
beautiful.
if that's what you're trying to do.
Beautiful. I love that because that can be in any setting in life. Are you, whatever you're doing, whatever you're saying, if you're giving a gift as well, are you doing it because it's for you? Or is it because it's going to help and enable whoever you're giving it to, whatever that looks like? And that's really, really beautiful. I think we forget about that. We are so centered on us that we forget
Yeah.
about, and that's it's not, and there's no blame game, there's no guilt here. It's just an awareness that, hey, sometimes we just fall into the trap here with the world we live in. So it's not a, hey, stop doing that. There's just sometimes we've got to look up to ourselves as well. We've got to go, hey, this is for me, and that's all good, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that there. But sometimes when you're doing something for someone else, think about where it's actually coming from.
It just comes back to listening. And I think I also, for me, I love talking. And as you can tell today, we've been talking for almost an hour. I can go on for days. And the biggest, most self-awareness thing that I've done in life is learn to listen and listen to what people are telling you. It's not always going to be Avin, sit down, I need to talk to you. It could be telling it to you in so many different ways. So just listen and be aware of your surroundings.
Yeah, and listening doesn't have to be words. It can also be nonverbal cues. Body language says so much, as we found out with reels.
Likely.
Beautiful. Evan, any last words before we round up? Anything else you'd like to add? I mean, there's so much in your world, but any last things that you'd like to say?
I don't think so, no. But yeah, I'm really grateful. I think it's people like you and all those amazing other people that give people like me a platform to share my story and my thoughts, even though they're sometimes very crazy, but that really contribute to change. Because the more that people hear about different journeys and they hear about different experiences and kind of ideologies and perceptions of things, the more accepting and understanding the world will be. So thank you for being part of the change.
No worries. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a privilege. And I think what you said there is really important that sharing a story, it could be told. You don't have to agree with the story, but it is a story, and everyone's story needs to be told, to be heard. And you don't have to agree, you don't have to disagree, but it's an awareness of, here's the information, you do what you want with it. So thank you for taking time to do that there with us. Um, Again, thank you so much for today. Like I said at the start, really privileged to have met you at the stage of your journey, and look forward to seeing what happens next year. Which wherever you end up going, you have one offer on the table, I know, and hopefully some other offers come to you because you deserve that there. And I'm sure wherever you go, you'll be fantastically awesome. So thank you so much. And to our listeners out there, hopefully you enjoyed today's podcast. Hopefully you learned something new. If you didn't learn something new, go back and listen again because you definitely missed out. There's some amazing nuggets here that Avin has shared with me and with us on the podcast today. Till next time, don't forget to keep safe, keep smiling, and most important of all, don't forget to put something into your basket of knowledge. Till next time, ka kite. Bye, everybody. Thanks, Evan.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Baskets of Knowledge.
Yeah, we hope that you found something useful to put into your basket of knowledge. And as we said before, remember to put something little into your baskets of knowledge every week. And as always, feel free to like, comment, and share this podcast. Thanks, everybody. Bye.